Meteorologists are tracking two warming events forming at the same time, a positive Indian Ocean Dipole and a super El Niño. Converging, they act as an atmospheric vacuum, shifting weather currents away from Southeast Asia, pulling moisture out and leaving it exposed to severe drought. The timeline of this disaster is deceptive. While drought conditions begin in early 2026, researchers have found that the peak of the crisis won't arrive until 2027. This delay sets the stage for a massive regional shock. Forecasters are bracing for a projected $27.8 billion economic loss and a measurable drop in human life expectancy across the ASEAN countries. The thermal stress of the weather anomaly triggers a cascading system failure throughout the interconnected regional economy. Look at these harvested rice stalks. Extreme heat attacks the baseline of the food supply immediately, slashing mainland rice yields by up to 8%. In the Philippines, every single degree Celsius of warming drops rice yields by 10%. That drop pushes stable farming families below the poverty line, creating a surge of what the World Bank calls the new poor. Other crops hide the damage for months. Across these Indonesian palm oil plantations, the trees silently absorb the drought conditions throughout 2026. Because of biological lag, the stressed trees won't actually fail to produce fruit until 2027, creating a secondary shock just when families are most vulnerable. The heat also breaks the water cycles these fishermen rely on. Normally, the Mekong River reverses flow into Cambodia's Tonle Sap Lake. The drought prevents that reversal, collapsing a system that provides 60% of the nation's protein. This agricultural shock is the first economic domino. It forces vulnerable rural populations into predatory debt and desperate migration as their primary assets vanish. The water shortage moves from the farms into the power grid. As riverbeds like this one along the Mekong run dry, Vietnam's critical hydropower plants lose their ability to generate electricity. That drop in power capacity forces the grid into rolling blackouts. The electricity cuts shut down operations at regional hospitals and paralyze high-tech manufacturing hubs in the north. Further south in Malaysia, dwindling public reservoirs create a different bottleneck. Local governments are forced to choose between supplying drinking water to citizens or industrial water to factories, leading to mandatory water rationing. Facilities like this advanced semiconductor engineering plant require massive amounts of water to assemble chips. When the rationing hits, these assembly lines face immediate stop-work scenarios. Because Southeast Asia is a node in global hardware production, a localized drought weaponizes the infrastructure, turning a weather event into a global technological shortage. In parched landscapes like this, across Myanmar and Laos, the drought creates a severe hunger gap. Displaced populations and subsistence farmers must sell their remaining tools and livestock just to purchase grain. Megacities like Jakarta present a different hazard. Rapid urbanization and concrete infrastructure create urban heat islands that trap lethal temperatures long after sunset. Wealthy hubs like Singapore face a secondary threat: imported inflation. Because the city-state imports 90% of its food supply, agricultural failures in neighboring countries cause grocery bills to spike. They also deal with the transboundary haze premium. Smoke from Indonesian peatland fires crosses borders, suffocating neighboring cities and costing billions in lost tourism revenue. The crisis is dictated by zip code. The rural poor face starvation and disease, while the urban class faces lethal heat, inflation, and toxic air. This is compound risk. The 2027 crunch is more dangerous than 2015 because factors like heat, water scarcity, and inflation stack simultaneously. The region's defenses are depleted. Vital reservoirs across Thailand and Malaysia are starting 2026 below average, meaning regional resilience is giving way. This is happening as global trade instability and fuel prices remain high. Regional governments have less fiscal space to provide the food subsidies or energy relief they used to rely on during climate shocks. This leaves a narrow window for regional leadership. There is an immediate need to forge binding water-sharing agreements and transboundary haze roadmaps before the next peak arrives. If regional cooperation cannot outpace the changing climate, this $27.8 billion El Niño will become the permanent baseline for decline in Southeast Asia.